I'm going to bring in Dan Harris, who worked at the White House and Capitol Hill, now hosts the Over Here, Over There podcast. Dan, what we heard there from Lenny is what we are. It's a sort of. Good morning, Dan.
Morning. Good morning, Nicky.
Good morning. It's a sort of cry of frustration and desperation that we saw, I guess, in the Metropolitan Police estimate, 110,000 people on the streets of London at the weekend in the Tommy Robinson March. We hear it in the MAGA movement as well, are feeling rightly or wrongly that they are, hard done by. That's a kind of common thread in Western liberal politics at the moment, isn't it?
I think the common thread that's coming through in our politics nowadays, which we don't speak enough of, is inequality, and especially in the UK and the United States. And the levels of inequality really just are to me, one of the root causes for feeling like a second-class citizen. And whether it be income, class distinction, some cultural thing. So that has really gotten out of hand. And the further west you go, from Europe to the UK to the United States, the problem of inequality gets worse. And it's something that we really have to address. So I can sympathize with what that gentleman was just talking about, but I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. And it's both, economic and social around inequality and the opportunities that people have in society, whether it be political, social, educational, or whatever.
Has that been the impetus for the rise of the MAGA movement?
Well, the MAGA movement has been started really, you could go all the way back to the Civil War in 1860, as far as this is concerned. America has had a racial problem for centuries, and it accelerated, unfortunately, I think in the last 30 to 40 years. And it's really, when I was growing up, you could hear stories or people saying, oh, in 30 or 40 years, we'll all be speaking Spanish in the United States. So this fear that has been building as far as the other side, the them, the component. And then it was just accelerated in the 1990s through Newt Gingrich and then through the Tea Party. And then it is now morphed into the MAGA movement. So it's been building. And yes, I think that it's now accelerating through inequality in the country, but it's been exploited as well by certain leaders, like Trump, I would say even here with Farage. So that's the problem. And the thing is, let's see, what are the Democrats or what are the parties over here going to do to address that? They've sort of lost the working class vote in the states, the Democrats, or they've lost a good chunk to the Republicans, and that's been enough for the Republicans to win elections in the states. But you've got to be able to address those fundamental inequality issues and deal with the race issue, which right now is wider than ever.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Wider than ever in America. Give me a little bit more of your unique insights into the race issue in America, because a lot of black people voted for President Trump, didn't they?
They did, and it's really the Democrats have not really figured out, why, or not have addressed that why. Why did black men, why did Latino men vote for Trump? And was it a vote against Kamala Harris? Was it a vote against Democrats? I think now we're seeing that some are having buyer's remorse as far as their vote is concerned because of what he's done with the ICE agents rounding up Latinos and Hispanics without due cause, outside the rule of law. So it has been building, and I think that things like the DEI has been used as a pejorative, and trying to establish these rules and regulations that have been passed, civil rights since 1965, the Voting Rights Act and things. Now they're just being degraded. They're being degraded by the MAGA movement, and that it really just needs to be addressed by the Democrats. They have to call it out and try to get back to a fair and equitable society should be. But that's now being dashed in favor of more authoritarianism and greater, I'm not going to use the word the fascist element just yet, but it's certainly an authoritarian play by the MAGA movement to really consolidate power here.
And the whole thing about free speech, what so many people, when they talk about free speech, I mean, I am a genuine enthusiast for free speech and for defending people saying things that
Likewise.
I really do not like. I'm all for that. But when a lot of people say free speech, they mean my speech, not your speech, don't they?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right. And it's gone both ways. The left has complained, the right has complained. It depends on who's in power and who's it affecting. And if you're affecting my speech, well, that's the real thing is, does it cause harm? That used to be the test. Like if the old case where if you shout fire in a crowded theater, that should be restricted when it's going to cause bodily harm or some kind of physical harm. But other than that, but that has now been grayed. It's been there's been obfuscated, to use another word, as far as what is harm and what is freedom of expression. And we've had various court rulings in the States as far as what freedom of expression means, which are really odd, like Citizens United, and basically being able to use your campaign fund contributions as a freedom of expression. So, and that's totally, to me, nonsensical. That's not freedom of expression. That's different. But that's what our Supreme Court ruled. So that has led to this avalanche of money going into politics, especially political action committees. Millions and billions going into and distorting our electoral process. So it really depends on who you ask, as you said, as far as my free speech and what it means.
Just a couple more, and I'm sorry I'm slightly late to the news because it's really useful having you on. Jimmy Kimmel's late night show pulled following his, quote, offensive comments about Charlie Kirk's death and his comments on the government's reaction to that death and who they pointed the finger of blame at in what he would say and others might say was a knee-jerk reaction. This is quite extraordinary, isn't it? In the Western world, a late-night show being pulled forever, and the president saying it's great news for America, a president who trumpets free speech. Quick reaction on that.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, you can't on one hand say to complain about free speech and then try to silence your critics like that. And he's been pressuring for years now the late night hosts like Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, who's still canceled. I think he's canceled as well. So it is having its effect. It's this bullying tactic of holding their license over their heads, saying we're not going to renew or we're not going to allow certain business dealings to occur if you don't comply with what we want. So, and this is what's happened. Obviously, the Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel have been quite harsh in their criticism over the years of Trump, and he's just using this as his tactic to get back at him. So, is it a surprise? No, it's not a surprise. But I think it's terrible for democracy.
Dan, thank you very much indeed. Just trying to think of an equivalent here. It would be seen as utterly outrageous. I think a lot of people will be minded to say. Thank you. Sorry I'm late for the news. Really interesting stuff there. Dan Harris, who has the podcast over here, over there. It is 9:36.
The Voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.